Government and MILF negotiators are now setting their sights on the last two remaining hurdles to a peace agreement. This followed the signing over the weekend of the contentious wealth sharing annex of the framework agreement on the Bangsamoro. Government negotiators assured the constitutionality of the accord. More from Rocky Ignacio.
The government peace panel stands firm in the legality of the newly signed wealth-sharing annex with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front in the recently concluded exploratory talks in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Wealth-sharing was the second of the 4 annexes that had been signed. The government and the MILF approved the transitional arrangement last February. The 2 annexes, including the remaining power sharing and normalization, are vital in pushing the creation of a new political entity under the framework agreement on Bangsamoro between the government and the MILF.
Confident that it will stand the test of legality and constitutionality.
Thank you.
Ferrer added that the newly approved annex does not compromise the government revenue system. She said that President Aquino's directive was very clear to provide fair and viable measures for the new Bangsamoro.
Let's be clear that this political arrangement, when we talk about wealth sharing, power sharing, it's not wealth sharing and power sharing between the MILF and the government. It's between the central government and the Bangsamoro. And yes, we will have a far better sets of institutions and powers for the Bangsamoro government than what is currently enjoyed in the ARM. That is for sure.
So what we gave was just fair.
It's fair, it's viable, it's constitutional, and it is something that will serve the aspirations of the Bangsamoro people.
Under the agreement, 20% from taxes, fees and charges will go to the central government and 75% to the Bangsamoro government. They will have an equal share from fossil fuels income such as petroleum, natural gas, coal, and uranium.
Behind the haggling for more shares is the intent to be less and less dependent on the national government. It indicated that the intention is not to get the lion's share, quote unquote, for its own sake, but to be able in the future to stand tall as a progressive and peaceful region, an equal partner of the central government in an equally peaceful and progressive country. This indeed is the true meaning of partnership. Partnership that is not based on dependency and patronage, but on the strength and capacities introduced by both for the benefit of the whole. The signing of the second annex is indeed a breakthrough. We expect the discussions on the power sharing and normalization annexes to be just as intense. But when you're halfway through, there is no reason to turn back. The only way to go is forward.
One of the important aspects in the wealth sharing is the automatic appropriations. Ferrer said this measure will lessen its dependency on government.
Of all the provisions, the jewel in the crown is the provision that the Bangsamoro will enjoy automatic appropriation and regular release of its budget. This allocation will be in the form of an annual block grant from the central government, similar to the Internal Revenue Allotment or the IRA received by LGUs.
The formula for the automatic appropriation of block grant will be provided in the Basic Law. The Government Peace Panels is confident that many lawmakers will support the provisions under Wealth Sharing Annex. Ferrer stressed that after the toughest rounds of the talks, the peace agreement is now within reach under the Aquino administration.
The process was driven by its own dynamics. And that dynamics certainly included that constant communication with our respective principals. There is no short-term interest that had to be satisfied by this, except for the desire that the peace will be kept, especially on the ground. The SONA was not the driving force in signing the annex. That's something that's very certain.
Meanwhile, both panels have set their visions on approving the last 2 remaining annexes of the framework, the power sharing and normalization. The GPH and MILF panels are expected to meet after Ramadan.
We marked that this very important, very difficult negotiations was done in the first week of Ramadan. And you can imagine how, therefore, that was. And for us, it is the sign of people sacrificing, people moving, people agreeing to move from positions. That this was indeed a very special gift of the Ramadan for the Filipino people.
For the People's Television, Rock Ignacio.